Hello, welcome back to PlayStation Access. My name's Nathan, I'm here with Dave.
Hello.
Dave, we're here to talk about Nioh.
Yes.
I've been playing quite a lot of it, and this is our guide, how not to die.
Yeah, sounds good.
And it's well timed because there's actually, if you don't know, coming up this weekend, there is a final beta for Nioh. So if you haven't played it, you can try it all this weekend for free. If
Really?
you're watching this, if you're watching this after the 22nd of January, you're going to have to wait till the game comes out. But that's not very long, and the game's brilliant. So I'm going to start my tips, okay, with...
Okay.
This goes from some basic stuff to some more complicated stuff. Nothing very complicated because I simply don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it is a very deep game. First of all, key.
Right. Is the key?
It is key. And as you know, like Nioh shares some similarities with the Soulsborne games, and there's the very important stamina bar there. So stamina is if you block, then your stamina bar gets depleted, and if you dodge or make attacks, then also so combat is strategic in the way that you're sometimes trying to move out the way so you can free up stamina.
Yeah.
And key operates in a very similar way. But there's something that you need to know,
Okay.
which is
Tell
that
me.
you can recover key.
Right.
And you can do this by a thing called a key pulse. So you can only do this after you've made an attack.
Right.
So in a way, it kind of encourages offensive play.
Yeah.
And if you do a single move or combo, not several moves in a row, but single move or combo, you will see that the key bar, it depletes into green, but there's a white flashing part.
Yeah.
That will slowly fill up blue. And once the blue is right at the top, or any time it's going up actually, you can press R1 and you'll recover the amount that the bar's got up to, and
Right.
obviously if you time it perfectly and it's got to the right back to the white section, you will recover all of it.
Got you.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't know about this and you've been playing the alpha or the beta and you were like, Nioh is so ridiculously hard, what's going on? This is probably it.
Yeah.
Key pulse and key managing your key is important. Regaining your key, using the key pulse, it's something you've got to keep reminding yourself to do. Even now, I forget to do it all the time. You've got to try and get into a rhythm of it.
Yeah.
And it's tough because different amounts of key from different kind of attacks, they take a little bit more or less time. They're differently timed. So it's really the thing you have to bear in mind is you're not going to be looking at the bar while you're fighting. I've tried that. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there is a visual cue around your character of William himself. The key kind of gathers in a blue orbs floating around you, and as they just flash at their biggest, you tap R1, bang, your key's back.
Yeah. It's literally it can be the difference between life and death. I guess that a little bit of extra key that you recover is like, enough for another blow, a finishing blow, or maybe a dodge,
Absolutely, and because your opponents have key as well, most of your strategies are everybody from the smallest enemy, the bandit that you find, to the big kind of mini bosses or the bosses that we're going to talk about. They are on their own key management kind of cycle. You want them to deplete their key, and then you get a free hit at them.
Yeah.
And because once you get down to no key and you try to either block or make an action, you kind of go into a stunned. You'll have a brief moment of not being able to do anything, and the same is true for your opponents.
Right.
So you obviously want to open up that window and then smash them to pieces.
Yes, definitely.
And one of the ways you'll do that is the first time you and I played the game, we saw that there were different stances. This is my kind of second point.
Yeah.
These are very intimidating at the beginning. There's 4 of them in total. You shift between them by pressing R1 and then any of the face buttons on the DualShock 4. One of them is just sheathing your weapon though. So there's effectively 3 offensive ones. And they are, as you go from X to square to triangle, kind of around up the pad, they are low, middle, and high stance.
Yeah.
And as you might expect, high stance is for power, so it's slower, stronger moves. They take up a lot of key. The middle is kind of a defensive class, and it's also the one that the game describes as the easiest.
Yeah.
It's basically most balanced, so your attacks are doing a bit more middle damage, but you are also quite maneuverable.
Yeah.
And key is kind of not. You're not spending too much key with every attack. And then low is for dodging. If you want to be very nimble, if you're fighting perhaps quite another fast opponent and you're thinking about using dodges more, it uses up less key for dodging than the other ones, although it does less offensive power as well. So you can kind of see how they work, but complicated thing is they all have different move sets attached to them.
Right.
So the standard, much like the Dark Souls games, there is triangle and square are your heavy and medium attacks.
Yeah.
For whatever weapon you're using, and there are lots of different weapons. And for every different stance, the sort of small, 2 or 3 button press combinations that you can, and the initial move sets are all different depending on what stance you're in. You learn them pretty quickly. So, for example, I was using katana. I was fighting enemies that were, you saw them actually, those kind of mining kind of golems.
Yeah.
And they kind of fall in front of you. So their attack is they kind of leer up and then they fall down. If you have a low stance, then even though it is not as powerful, the strike with the katana kind of is like lighting a match on the ground. It strikes right up. And I knew that was going to be doing them more damage than kind of coming down with a high blow and maybe missing with a diagonal strike.
Yeah.
So what you'll find is, as you get to know the enemies that you're facing and the levels, you will change between stances, first of all between encounters, and then as you get better, you will, when you're, say, playing or fighting a boss, you will use low stance to dodge out a pattern of his attacks, and then you'll switch upper stance in order to get in closer and do more damage.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention something complicated, which I have not even come close to mastering yet.
Right.
But later on, you also have the ability to, we talked about key pulse, there's a thing called a flux, which actually regains more of your key. Instead of just pressing R1 when you're reclaiming your key, you press R1 and one of the face buttons to change stance, and you get even more back.
Right, okay.
I can't do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not that guy.
So this, and I think stances probably, again, if you're getting beaten up or you're struggling to do damage and you're wondering why, maybe you did more damage before and you're like, what's happened? It's probably a good idea to take a look at your stance, because
it really is. Yeah, I mean, when I played the game for the very first time, you were there. I just went, I'm going to stick it in middle stance, just crack on, and that's not really.
I think that's what everyone's going to do to begin with, because it's like, it is a balance, like
you're
getting a little bit of everything,
and
you'll be all right for a while. But if you want to progress in the game, you're going to have to start understanding the stances and using them.
It's not really as intimidating as it seems, because the game does encourage you to specialize with 1 or 2 weapons. When you go through and you build your character, or you kind of, you're customizing your character at the beginning. You do choose a secondary and a primary weapon, and they have like it gives your character a buff to help, and obviously you can switch it up and use different ones later on.
The other thing to say just about stances is, as with like the key pulse, you don't always have to be looking at the HUD. You will come to learn how you'll hold your weapon depending on which stance you're in, and how you move and everything should give you a good
The feedback of the in-game kind of visuals does, it's trying to help you out as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it really isn't as complicated as it first seems. It does. This element of the game does become quite intuitive. Next, I just want to mention, because I had no idea when I got into the game about the yokai and what on earth they are.
No.
And this is, so there are bandits going throughout the game, and the yokai are kind of just like, they're supernatural beings.
Right.
So every now and again you'll fight, I fought a tengu, which was the bird guy.
Right, okay.
And other ones I have no idea what a guy with a massive tongue and a sort of a wheel of fire with a face.
With a face, I remember.
So these are all yokai, and one of the things that, and most of the bosses are as well, and one of the things that will come while you're fighting them is the yokai realm, which is the smoke that they kind of dredge up from the ground. And when you're in there, that's like has a debuffing effect on you, so your key regeneration is very low, your powers, your attacks won't be as powerful, and they are overpowered. And because key pulse, the game's kind of explanation for when you time it right so you recover a bit of your key with the key pulse, it's your purity of heart helping you through the battle.
Okay.
So nailing one of those while you're in kind of contact with the yokai realm disperses it, which is obviously, if say you have a go at the beta this weekend, somebody's putting down these kind of puddles of mist, and you're getting killed and you don't know why, try key pulse, it will disperse it.
Got you.
And it will help. What else do we have going on? Guardian Spirit. This is important. This is also, I said you select your weapons at the beginning, your primary and secondary weapons, and they come with kind of, it's just a +1 on a couple of different stats. Guardian Spirit is also something you select at the beginning, and you have 3 different options. So if you're looking at the gameplay on the screen now, the top left-hand corner, there's a little symbol which gradually fills up, and it's got an animal on it.
Yep.
One of the characteristics of the hero, William, is that he has a guardian spirit attached to him, and he takes an animal form, and which one you choose determines what your kind of extra power will be. So what happens is basically when that symbol is filled up, you press circle and triangle, and you activate what's called the living weapon,
Right.
which is it's like a power mode.
Yeah.
You can't take damage. You got your key bar turns into like your guardian spirit bar. As that depletes slowly, you are invulnerable.
Right.
Every attack will take more of it down. But at the same time, you're supercharged. So your attack's doing more damage, and you can't take any damage. And you can also do a special kind of move by pressing circle and triangle again, and that will, depending on what your animal is, that will do a different kind of attack.
Got you.
So the ones that are available to you at the beginning of the game are Kato, which is the fox.
Yep.
That's kind of like the standard one that most of the demo builds have been using, and that is a buff to when you go into the living weapon. That's like a really big buff to your attack, and it gives you kind of quite aggressive passive buffs as well.
Okay.
To your kind of key regeneration and regular damage. There's Isanade,
Right.
who is a shark.
Nice pronouncement.
Thanks, man. Otherwise, he could make him sound like a lemonade. And he's really cool. So his static buff is that you can perceive enemies better. And I like that you pointed out that might be because sharks are really good at like smelling blood in the water.
Yeah. And is that that's even when living weapon isn't activated?
So
that's
yeah,
just a constant passive buff.
Look at the passive buffs for when you're choosing these. Because if you look at the minimap in the top right-hand corner of the gameplay we've got on screen now, you can just see where the enemies are.
Right.
And in this kind of game, I mean, that's a huge thing. And you can also see where the shrines are. So if you have ever played Dark Souls and you were like, where is the bonfire? You can actually see it on the minimap this time.
That is a big deal.
And the last one is Daibai-Washi, who's like a hawk. It's like a wind elemental. And this one helps you with dodging.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing I just want to say quickly about Guardian Spirits is that it ties into, like in the Dark Souls, when you die, you lose your humanity.
Yeah.
And then you can't be invaded, you can't do the online stuff. Here what happens is the amrita that you've been getting, it's like the souls you've been collecting.
Yeah.
You do go back to pick them up, just like in the Dark Souls games. But this time, so they're in your grave, right? And your grave is being protected by your guardian spirit, and they literally patrol it around the outside.
That's cool.
And how that kind of ties in the mechanic. The way that works is that when you respawn at a shrine and you're going to pick up all your amrita, and you might have loads. You don't have any of the buffs from your spirit guardian.
Okay, so because your spirit is elsewhere protecting your amrita.
And so you go and pick it up, and then it's reunited with you. And if you die again and you lose all your stuff, the spirit jumps out of the shrine and just rejoins you.
Right,
so you get kind of one chance to get your stuff back. And the next one, Dave, one of my favourite things is Kodama blessings.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we played this game. We went to a shrine, and there was a little green guy on there with a big hat.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what he was for.
No.
But you can find them around the level, and they are hidden in the kind of places you would expect if you know the kind of the sense of humour almost of the Souls games, where things are tucked away around corners and down tunnels. You will find Kodama's you guide them back to the shrine.
I love that bit.
Sometimes they're next to the shrine.
Yeah.
And you kind of guide them back, and you can end up with like a collection of them all over, and they make like a little noise. They're like a little band, and if you attack if you just do attack moves near them, they hide under their bowl
That's one of my favourite things. I think
they're brilliant, and they cheer me up every time I find them, because it is quite a scary game.
Yeah.
It's quite an oppressive game. Every time I find one, it really cheers me up. And you can go into the shrine options. You can choose a Kodama blessing, and this is basically affects the drop rate very slightly of certain things.
Right.
So if you choose the healer blessing, then you will find more elixirs.
Got you.
Those sorts of things. And basically you can find often more than what blessings are available. Depends on the type of Kodama that you found.
Right.
And they stack. So if you find two of the same, then instead of 1% drop increase, it'll be 2%.
And their kind is sort of denoted by different hats, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
Exactly.
It's so good.
It's so fun. Finding them is really, really good. The next thing to talk about is gear, and this works much as you think it will. I kind of think, I think the interface is actually, again, similar to people who have played the Souls games, and you will understand the kind of the character status and item screens. I think they've simplified it a little bit, because as you collect gear, and most enemies drop gear, there's a lot of kind of armor and weapons that you'll find. there's just a big old arrow next to it.
Yeah.
And that will say this is better or this is worse. And sometimes I think with the weapons, depending on your other characteristics, that up and down arrow might not be a true reflection of how your character multiplies with certain effects of the weapons. So if you get to be more advanced, then take good care about this.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, when you're first walking in and you're killing someone and you want to see if you should put the new trousers on, that arrow is the thing to look at. And then as you get higher in gear, you're going to be looking at the other effects that it's got. And the other thing about gear is there's so much of it. You know, you first time you played, I remember you saying, "Why have you got so much?" And you know, and it's because you can use it you can make offerings with it at the shrines. So the equivalent to souls, the leveling kind of currency of the game is amrita, which is kind of like a precious magical stone, and you can make offerings at shrines. So you can basically trade in trash gear that you're not going to use for small amounts of amrita, just helping you to level.
So it's worth picking up gear even if you're not intending to use it, even if it's, you know, a lower level or whatever, because you can break it down at shrines for amrita that you can use.
Exactly, and it's got that nice thing as well when you bust open an enemy and they die, where all their stuff just sort of explodes in slightly luminous gold and silver items, and it just bloop, 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 bloop. I'm just gonna, that's all from me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then my last point, I think for now, is about skill points and character builds. And character builds, I don't know, I haven't played it really enough to know what kind of character I'm going to have, but just to let you know that as you level, you will choose skill points to put in certain areas, and that works much like that on the face of it. I'm not sure the specifics, but on the face of it, that will work in terms of creating and customizing your character, a lot like in Dark Souls. But then there's also skill points.
Yeah.
And this is a revelation. I mean, it's actually something which, you know, after I've been playing the game for about 15 hours, I only just realised this was here.
Yeah.
And this is, so say it's got every different weapon type. That's swords, dual swords, spears, axes, and kusaragamas, which are like knives on chains.
Yeah.
And there is separate skills that you can unlock in every one of those categories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. And these are, sometimes they're one-off moves. So it might be the ability to strike out of block, or it might be an ability to do the flux, the key pulse changing stance and getting extra key back that I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to investigate those early on, find out what weapon you're definitely going to specialize in, probably, and then the skill trees are flipping big.
Yeah, they're really big.
And then kind of accumulate that gradually into your play style. And then on the end, as well as the kind of all the weapon-based skill points that you can get, there's also ninjutsu, which is, well, ninjutsu and magic, and I kind of think they go together. And I don't know, I assume they're competing builds of character. And they allow you to do things like carry more kind of consumable items to make better consumable items.
Yeah.
And to generally kind of, it's kind of like all your accessorizing is going to be helped by, you can like carry more elixirs if you like level up ninjutsu skill to a certain point. And the only thing to mention about that is that you should keep an eye on skill points. They accumulate next to your items on the bottom left-hand corner. And I think we were trying to figure out how they were given to you, how they were kind of, and you said that it's every time you level.
Yes, so you get them at shrines every time you level, but a pro tip apparently is that you also get a skill point for every notch of familiarity that you have with a weapon. So it's worth even just becoming slightly familiar with all the weapons at the beginning of the game is a good way of getting some early samurai skill points that you can then spend on your...
Yeah, I didn't mention familiarity, and I should have done, really. It's basically as you... And I really like this in shooters as well. As you use a weapon, your affinity with it grows, and the damage you do gets better. And as you said, in Nioh, there are notches that you go up. Some weapons have more than others, and so every one of those that you complete, you get a skill point.
And you don't have to spend that skill point on that weapon, you know. So if you want to play with dual swords, but you're getting the skill points from an axe, as you say, you can spend that on your dual swords. You know, they're not linked to the specific sort of trees.
So it encourages experimentation at the beginning.
Yeah, which is a good advice anyway, to try and find out what works for you and what you like.
Exactly.
I've got to say I really like the skill tree, and like as you said, you played it for quite a long time without realizing it was there. I just like the idea that, you know, leveling in games, quite often games like the Soulsborne games, it's just numbers in the background, and you level up and some numbers change, and you're aware that you're more powerful, and you can see it happening. But I so much prefer getting a new skill, you know, like and working to earn a new skill. Like I've got that move I want.
It's like buying a card in a board game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because I think that's definitely true of my experience with Dark Souls. Was even though I knew what character I wanted to kind of carve out of the stats, it happens. It's a really gradual process, and your character kind of evolves into something. But here is, like you say, you can kind of, it's like buying a shiny toy. It's like saving up, going to town and buying a murderous downward cleave.
Exactly, and it's a good incentive. You know, it's a good incentive to have a look at that tree and think out what's going to help me play better, and, you know, and earn it, and maybe, you know, use different. How am I going to get some skill points? Of maybe you know, through leveling or using different weapons or whatever. It's just a really good incentive to get you to play the game and help you understand it. So, I am all for that.
Exactly. So I mean, my experience with this game is that it's deep and it's really, really enjoyable, and it's not as intimidating as it first seems. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, take what we have told you. Go and play the beta this weekend, the final beta, on the 21st and the 22nd of January. The game is out on the 8th of February, so not long to wait after that. It's going to be one that we currently have it on a. I'm waiting for the actual full game to come out. The version that we've got at the moment isn't one I'm going to be able to take home. So I am excited. I feel like, you know, I've done The Witcher, Dave. I'm finally going to get invested in another game.
I'm excited. I've just been watching you play, and I'm excited about it. Like, I've really enjoyed watching, and it's got that. I don't want to keep saying Soulsborne, but it has got that sort of mystery and that learning curve, and
it's
uncovering,
fun to watch,
understanding
it's fun
the
to
world.
Do it together, like
it is, yeah, it really is, and it's one of those games you're going to want to talk to about, talk to other people about, and, you know, share your experiences and stuff. It's just, it's exciting.
So look, if you're watching this before the weekend, do try the beta, and then if after the weekend, let us know what you think about it, what you thought about it. And we will probably have more on Nioh coming up to its launch. Thank you for watching this video. Give us a like, and we'll see you again soon.